So I had to do things to make people notice that I existed. So just as I told you, this bullshit guy in South Miami who was telling us, hey, I'm gonna send the footage of this game to Japan. And again, as soon as he said it, I knew it was bullshit. But these guys believed it because they hadn't done what I had done. I had been to a bunch of exposure camps. I went to a bunch of tryouts. I called a bunch of agents. I had invested time, money, attention, and energy into my career at that point. So I knew the type of things that I needed to do in order to create my next opportunity. These guys who I was teammates with in this one game, they hadn't done any of those things. They were looking for the cheap and easy route to get on. And this guy was taking advantage of their hunger, their thirst, by selling himself as somebody who could help them do something that they hadn't done for themselves. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? Point being, I was consistent. And this is my second point. This is point number 2 here. I was consistent in my efforts to do things to get myself seen. So I knew that this guy was full of shit because I knew what it took. Whereas these other guys couldn't tell that he was full of shit. They lacked the discernment because they didn't have my experience. You follow? Whatever you have decided is a place that you could possibly be found, you must be active in that space so that if someone does come looking for something that you're offering, you are the something that they will be shown. So in the basketball space, I knew there were coaches and agents and scouts and teams looking for players. And I knew where they looked. And they weren't looking to this bullshit guy from South Miami, claiming he was sending footage from the game to Japan. This is complete nonsense. I knew where they looked. I knew what I was going to have to do. I knew what investments I was going to have to make. I knew what places I was going to have to go. And that game that I'm keep referring to, that wasn't it. That was not one of the things I would need to do. It wasn't that. If it was that easy, then a lot of people would have been playing professional basketball. So the way that things work these days, the more active you are in a space, the more likely it is that you will be found in that space. And it was like that back in the days as well. It's more crowded now than it was before, simply because everyone has access to internet devices. Many people have grown up using them, so everyone is pretty deft at using this stuff. Whereas back when I was in the early years of my basketball career, actually throughout my whole basketball career, it wasn't as crowded simply because there weren't as many people who understood the process of what to do, how to do it, getting yourself out there online. I was a very early adopter to this stuff. So it's more crowded for you now than it was then, but let's remember that we're still in a performance-based business. The performers are still the performers. You may have to cut through more fat, but it still is a performance-based business. So don't be discouraged by this truth. You can't just do one thing, folks, and hope that that will be enough for you to get seen. I remember I was talking to a woman, I was speaking at an event